One, supporting small businesses, and two, the vaccine requirement that goes into effect on Saturday, January 15th. So there are two reasons why we have the vaccine requirement. One, to encourage more people to get vaccinated, and two, to make sure that we have safer environments when we all gather together. So the vaccine requirement means that everybody who is 12 years and older has to show proof of one dose of the vaccine when they enter into a restaurant, sporting or cultural venue, or a gym or recreation facility. So they have to do that starting tomorrow at 6 a.m. And so in addition to those who are 12 and older having to show proof, those who are 18 and older have to actually show their proof of vaccination as well as their photo ID that matches that proof of vaccination. So we've laid this all out at vaxdc.dc.gov. That's where you can find more information about the vaccine requirement that goes into effect. And like I said, one dose by Saturday the 15th of January, and then by February 15th, you'll actually be required to show proof of 2 doses. We're also here to talk about supporting small business. And we're here at Delphine's in downtown Washington, D.C. To talk about Restaurant Week. So I'm really excited to be joined by 2 folks from the restaurant industry and that represent all of our small businesses that employ thousands and thousands of Washingtonians. And so Restaurant Week is really special to all of us because it's an opportunity for us to actually experience DC in a way that we haven't before. When I came here in 1997 as a college student and continued on here as a young professional, I couldn't afford to eat at Delphine's on a regular basis. But Restaurant Week was that one time that you were able to go out and try those places that you maybe weren't able to access before. So got a chance to come to places like this if this had been here way back then, many, many years ago. So really want to talk about kind of what Restaurant Week means to Washingtonians, what restaurant means to the industry. So joined by Kathy Hollinger, who is the president and CEO of the Restaurant Association of Metropolitan Washington. We'll have her come up, and then she'll be followed by Gavin Coleman, who is the vice chair of the association, but also the proprietor here at Delphine's. And then he'll be followed by Christy Whitfield, who's our director of the Department of Small and Local Business Development, to talk a little bit about how we all can support small businesses. So with that, we'll bring up Kathy.
Good afternoon, everyone. Happy New Year. So yes, we got Restaurant Week coming up on Monday, kicking off. For those of you who do not know, Restaurant Week is offered 2 times throughout the year, one in the winter and one in the summer. So that's typically in January and in August, which are notably pre-pandemic the slowest times of the year for our industry. So we had a program that was designed to really bring people out, support small businesses, but also have diners experience a range of culinary options here in DC and across the region. We have over 200 restaurants participating in Winter Restaurant Week. We have price points that range from $25 for lunch, $40 for dinner, and we also have, and actually that $25 is lunch and brunch, $40 for dinner, and then $55 option for restaurants who want to extend those offerings or elaborate on what those choices could be for diners. Very, very excited. As you can imagine, the industry is feeling quite fragile at this point, coming off the holidays, which were unexpected on some level in terms of impact to our industry, which is a very, very busy time of year. So this is incredibly needed. Diners have been so supportive during the pandemic. This is another opportunity for diners to be able to do that in a way where operators are meeting them at their comfort level. So we have offerings that are, of course, on-premise indoor dining, as well as outdoor dining options, to-go offerings, as well as what is some modified version of a family meal at the Restaurant Week. Pricing for 2 or 4 people. So I'm encouraging everybody to get out. This is probably the most needed effort right now. We are seeing that diners want to come out. They want to find ways that they can support these great businesses, and this is a perfect way to do that, whether it's for yourself or whether you are gifting the dining of Restaurant Week for a neighbor or a friend. So it kicks off on Monday. It goes until the following Sunday, and you can see all of the great restaurants participating at rwdmv.com. I think that's it.
Hi, so like John said, I'm Gavin Coleman. I'm one of the partners here at Dolphins, and thank you everybody for coming in and, helping promote Restaurant Week. This is our first time doing Restaurant Week at Dolphins. We're a new restaurant, and, we hope people take this opportunity to support restaurants across the city, restaurants you wouldn't usually go to. Go back to neighborhoods you used to go to, like downtown. Downtown has been especially hard hit throughout the pandemic. The last 4 weeks have been really tough for restaurants. But we're coming out of it. Things seem to be taking a turn. We're leaning into the mayor's vax mandate and, really stressing to people that it's safe to come into the restaurants. We're going to do everything we can to make it a safe experience for you. And then, hopefully help you forget the pandemic and enjoy the restaurants and have a special night out. Whether you're doing it at a place like Dolphins or if you're doing it at your neighborhood place, every restaurant's going to appreciate the support. And hopefully it'll remind you to come out again after Restaurant Week as well. All right?
Good afternoon. I'm going to pick this up, Deputy Mayor. Good afternoon. I'm Christy Whitfield. I'm the Director of the Department of Small and Local Business Development. Mayor Bowser has said consistently that we're all in this together and we're going to get through this together. I am a parent. I'm a former business owner. And I'm tired of COVID, like everybody, right? People want to know what they can do sometimes, and we've felt a little powerless. So you vote. You vote with your feet and you vote with your money. So get vaccinated and then vote with your feet and vote with your money. Do you know somebody that's tired? Do you appreciate a teacher? Do you appreciate a first responder? Buy a gift certificate. Give them a night out. Give them an opportunity to do something that's a little bit of a stress release. Our restaurants need our help. Everybody wants our restaurants in our neighborhoods. The restaurants in your local neighborhoods help your property value. Do it because you don't want your property values to go down. Do it for whatever reason you need to do it. Vote with your feet, vote with your money. Support your local establishments and get out there and do it in a way that's comfortable for you. Do it in the restaurant, do it and carry it out, do it for a friend. We need the support, and we all need a little fun, and the delicious food will be worth the trip. So come out, support, and get your shot. Thank you very much.
So with that, the information for the vax requirement is at vaxdc.dc.gov. For folks who are going to restaurants or going out, you'll see this sign posted at restaurants, at the venues that have to enforce the vaccine requirement. And so what we do is we lay out on that that where it is required. We also have a QR code so that people, when they arrive at a restaurant, they're not sure what the vaccine requirement is, can easily access the vaxdc.dc.gov. So with that, we'll take any questions. Yes, Mark.
Staying with the sign, so is that sign mandatory? Do they have to have that actual sign with the QR code?
Yeah, so we have asked restaurants and other venues to use that sign. What we've seen over the course of time is we've seen folks use other signs. I've actually seen on certain places that they've actually, like for their mask, they've actually like etched it into the glass at this point. So we may evolve on that, but for right now, we're asking everybody, just as we get off to this start of the vaccine requirement, to use the sign.
And then the mayor's mandate does not cover employees of any of these establishments. In the past, the reasoning for that was because of the federal mandate, which was struck down by SCOTUS.
Yeah.
So will the mayor now amend her mandate to include employees of these venues?
Yeah, so what was interesting was there was a Supreme Court ruling that came out yesterday, and the Supreme Court struck down the federal requirement. And again, Mayor Bowser has stressed how supportive she is of the federal requirement. Now that it seems like that won't be in place, what we will do is analyze the ruling and really kind of, one, we want to get out the message that an employer can put in place a vaccine mandate. So we as the district government have a vaccine mandate for our employees. We're going to have updates to that in the days ahead to talk about when that will become a mandate without a test out option. But an employer is actually allowed to go beyond and to put in a mandate themselves. What we have to check now with the court ruling is whether the district can force other employers to do that. So again, we as district government can do it for our employees, and the mayor has. And then for private employers, they can put in their own vaccine mandate. What the Supreme Court said was the federal government can't mandate them to put in that mandate.
So
Like Delphines.
Like Delphines.
Like Delphines.
So,
We kind of leaned into that early here. All of our restaurants, Delphines, Salt Line, the Dubliner, and we mandated all of our employees to be vaccinated. And to be honest, our employees embraced it and were looking for us to do that. It made them feel safer at work, and it made customers feel safer going into the restaurants. So, I mean, it was a non-issue for us. And we did that back in August. And since we've actually mandated boosters as well.
I'm sure Deputy Mayor appreciates you joining that lifeline, but if I could follow up with the Deputy Mayor on that. So you're telling me you guys have not, your general counsel has not looked at this before the SCOTUS?
Oh, no, we have. We just have to review what the actual content of the ruling is, which came out yesterday.
So if you determine that the mayor does have that authority, would she then?
Well, it'd be something we have to review. So I don't have anything to announce on it today, but we are looking at it now.
And then, are you aware of the social media posts by the big board on H Street, which appears to, I infer from their tweet, that they're not going to enforce? You've had this with businesses over the past 2 years. With mandates that they push back. I'm wondering if you're aware of this particular business that has gone public saying this, and what will happen tomorrow with this business?
Yeah, so remember, we've always led with education, compliance, and enforcement, so we want to make sure everybody gets the word out. We've had folks go door to door to businesses, bringing signs like the one you see behind me, bringing extra masks to businesses to try to support them. And actually, you're right, every time we've put something that's a requirement in place, we have had someone say, I don't know that I'm going to do that, right? And what happens is our agencies will go out and talk to businesses across the board and make sure they understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. There's two reasons we're putting in place the vaccine requirement. One, to make sure that more people get vaccinated, and two, to make sure we have safer environments. So I won't talk about a particular business right now, but I will say that we will, again, lead with education, compliance, and enforcement. And we've dealt with this before, where a business has said, we're not going to do it, and ultimately they do comply.
All right, and then can I just ask about a couple of the specifics? You're going to have to show the card, but you can show a picture of the card.
Yeah.
You can, and your driver's license. Somebody doesn't want to pull out a wallet and a phone. Could somebody take a picture of their driver's license and therefore just pull out a picture of their license and a picture of their card on the same phone rather than a wallet?
Let me check to see. I think the one thing I don't want to answer that for is I don't know about ABRA establishments if they allow that for also checking that ID for being 21. So I don't want to say yes to that in the instance that somebody then uses it to drink. So just got to walk through that, and we come back to you with an answer.
And then gyms and places that have memberships, private clubs,
yes,
are allowed to pre-register their guests, their visitors, or customers with their Vax ID so that they don't actually have to check it. It's part of the check-in policy.
Correct.
With restaurants that have reservation systems in place, would they be able to do the same thing through their reservation system?
So what we've asked for, and we've had that similar question for events, and event planners have asked about that too. If we are requesting RSVPs, and part of our requests in the RSVP is to say what your vaccine status, we have said that that is permissible, but what we do want you to do is have a list on site so that if we do come for compliance check, that you're able to show where you've collected that information.
Thank you.
So I saw Kathy nodding her head.
Please, yeah.
So is that how it works in terms of the liquor, whether you're old enough to drink, that sort of thing? you can show electronic stuff?
So I don't know about, I think ABRA requires that you are showing a actual ID only. I don't know that the technology is there where you can show. However, I was nodding my head more to anything that allows for more streamlining of these mandates and process for a small business owner is going to be easier, of course, as long as it meets the initial intent. I know that the technology is there to be able to support, you know, let's say the regular customer of Kathy Hollinger that goes to this one restaurant all the time. And if there is a system in place that curates all of the Kathy Hollinger information, of course that would be ideal for the small business owner that can at least secure 20% of their reservations, knowing that 20% are regular customers.
Now, of course, you represent the industry, and I guess you talk to a lot of people. How are they reacting? Are they for it, or some of them against it, or what's the reaction?
To the mandate specifically?
Yes.
To the vaccination mandate? You know, I will say that this has been an ongoing conversation with REMW and all of our operators for months now. We've been watching what New York City was doing, other cities are doing. I talked to my colleagues all over the country. It was not a surprise, so we were somewhat preparing for this. We have many operators who, similar to Gavin, who thought about what would be required in their own establishment as they are reopening and bringing staff back. So they put in their own requirements. So, you know, Sam, I'll tell you this. None of this is ideal. I'm not going to say that, you know, all of this works and it's great. It's all been a challenge and a struggle. Our bigger issue is the policing of everything and the layering mandates of having to have a small business police various mandates. But, you know, DC has remained in a pretty good place in terms of the last 2 years now as we've been dealing with this. They have pivoted to be able to take on these mandates, but it is, of course, it's a lot. It is burdensome, and I would be dishonest if I said it is not burdensome. It's that we are all figuring this out and trying to create our own processes within the establishment itself to make it as easy for the operator, the diner, and the employees.
And Gavin talked about policing, and to some sense, I thought you were saying basically you're used to having bartenders, so you're used to, I guess, checking IDs and stuff like that. I mean, do I have that right?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I've been working in and out of a bar for 27 years. You know, I've been IDing people for a long time to drink alcohol. So that in and of itself is not the biggest deal. I think the idea of being able to put this information into our reservation system, if I can remember what kind of glass of wine you like to drink, what kind of oyster you like, I can remember that you've been vaccinated in our system. So that's good news for us. I mean, listen, we've been learning to adapt to a million different things over the last 2 years. We've always been good at adapting in this business, but the last 2 years we've done an even better job. So if this is just another thing that helps people feel more comfortable going out, then, you know, we'll learn to deal with that as well.
Finally, for me, Mr. Deputy Mayor, just a quick question. What are all these apps? I mean, how do you find them?
Yeah.
Which ones are acceptable?
Yeah,
which
actually,
ones are not?
and I was going to ask Kathy too, because they implemented one when they had their big event, their big annual event. So I'll ask Kathy to come back up. But we'll allow for any of the apps to be accepted. So there's Clear, there's VaxYes, there's our own, which is MyIR.
Get a list?
Yeah, actually, well, we do have a list on vaxdc.dc.gov where you can, all the different proofs of vaccination that you could use. You could bring your card, or you could bring a photocopy of your card, because I know not everybody wants to carry around their card. You could bring a photo of that card on your phone, as it was mentioned earlier, or you could use one of these apps to show that you have, again, 1 dose by January 15th and 2 doses by February 15th. But I'll bring Kathy back up to talk about her experience. But go ahead.
Let me just get this straight. So if you just take a picture of your vaccination card
Correct.
on your phone, that's acceptable.
That's acceptable, and if you're 18 and over, you'd have to show your ID along with that picture of that vaccination card.
Okay.
Yep. But Kathy, your experience?
Yeah, so back during the summer, late summer, we explored what other cities were doing as it relates to in-person events again. And VaxYes is what we executed for our industry-wide events. And anything that we are doing that is in person, they can utilize that VaxYes. And this was prior to the vaccination mandate in DC, where now we will, it will be a bit more flexible, where we're not just asking people to use VaxYes, which was the case when we did the Rammies in September. Anyone participating had to be fully vaccinated, and they had to show their proof of vaccination through this platform. Very easy, did not take very long. Authentication came in pretty quickly. And we found, for the most part, I would say 80% of those attending using that app had very little trouble. And if they had trouble, it was because they probably had larger technology troubles in general, so we walked them through that. Now we're going to do exactly what the city will require in terms of forms of proof that could serve for showing that you were vaccinated.
Hi, Kathy.
Hi.
Nate Bill with Axios. Montgomery County has legislation to sort of match DC's indoor vaccine mandate. It's unlikely Virginia's going to follow in this direction. But do you have just the association have a stance on Montgomery County, the legislation there going the same way as DC?
So, our organization is regional in nature, so we have Montgomery County operators as well. Really, we try to approach what is happening anywhere throughout the region as something that people should consider. It could apply to them as well. So we have somewhat been preparing them for that. But we also have operators who are here in DC, and they have establishments down in Montgomery County. They also have establishments in Northern Virginia. And while that can be challenging in terms of trying to keep up with various mandates or regulatory provisions that are in place, it is something that is not, they're not used to.
Kathy, can I follow up?
Yeah.
So just in general, does your association support the vaccine mandate?
So, Mark, we did not take a position on whether we support or not. What we recognized at the time when it was being considered is that we were at a crossroads. We were incredibly fragile as an industry, and the last thing we wanted to do was to take steps backwards and close down again. That is where we were and our mindset was, particularly over the last month. So are we more pleased that there is something in place that prevents us from further shutting down? Absolutely. And is this the step that needed to happen so that we can avoid that as we're in a really difficult time? Yes.
So did you poll your membership on this?
We did. And it was a mixed bag. We're regional. So if you were to ask some of our Virginia operators, they did not necessarily think it was necessary at this time. They thought that it was something that could have been considered regionally a few months ago. So some of it was timing. I would say that several months ago, there was a majority consensus that people understood this may come down the pike and that it was something that should be considered for themselves as small business owners, whether it was mandated or not.
And then can I ask you, are you familiar with the big board and their social media presence?
I am not, and I was going to ask you about that. I am not, and I'm happy to respond to that if I know a little bit more.
And if I could just throw an off-topic question at you, we're learning today that the owner of the Amsterdam in Asworth passed away.
Yes.
I'm just wondering if you have a long-time restaurant owner, business owner in our community.
We heard of this news yesterday, very saddened by it. And yes, they've been a big part of the RMW community and this industry and the neighborhood in which they operated. Very, very sad. I have no additional information, but we are all saddened as a community to hear that news.
Deputy Mayor, were you aware? Did you?
Actually, I hadn't heard that. I haven't. One thing I would say, and kind of building on something Kathy had said about, an individual business can also, say that there's one form of the vaccine requirement that they want to see, right? So a venue could say, in order to come to our venue, we want you to use the Clear app or what have you. So just as another layer of sort of what people should think about as they go out is what form of vaccine that place is asking you to use, what form of vaccine proof. Excuse me? So I will say I was at a venue, this was out of state, right? I was at a venue out of state, and they only accepted Clear. They only accepted Clear.
They didn't accept real documents.
They didn't accept they wanted you to have the Clear document, so they had a record of it. So that is something that people can, or the businesses or venues can put in place. What Kathy did during the Restaurant Association's event was made it clear to everybody that they were utilizing that one app and that everybody should use it. So I actually use that app now when I go to other venues to show them that I have vaccine proof. So just to let folks know, especially as they're going to bigger venues, some bigger venues may actually designate one proof of vaccine.
Really? I mean, so it says proof of vaccination.
Yeah, but again,
I don't get it.
a business could always ask for something a little bit more. Like we had a teletown hall the other day where business was one, they asked all their employees, they mandated all their employees get vaccinated, and then two, they weren't, they were not allowing folks inside. This was on their voluntary program. They weren't allowing folks inside if they had a negative test. That wasn't something that they were allowing for. So each business can implement this and go stricter than the requirement that we put forth.
Is there a way to tell businesses, you got to accept the CDC card? And it's kind of like saying we don't accept cash or something.
Yeah, so all businesses could accept whatever. The point I'm just making is that folks should be prepared because businesses can ask for what they want to see.
I understand, but can the government say, all businesses, you have to, there's a baseline?
Well, we think the easiest way to implement it is to have all the proofs of vaccination available and readily accepted.
But you can't write into it saying that if you're a business, you have to accept the CDC card. You can't say, we're not going to accept the CDC card, we want...
Well, I would think they would all accept that. And we haven't heard that at all here, just letting folks know that they should check ahead at how exactly to show that proof of vaccination.
What I'm saying is that that's permissible, and I think what we're getting at is that, one, I can see it's like the betting app, right? What if the Capital One Arena has a fiscal interest in the Clear Pass and only accepts that because somehow they're getting, I'm not saying that they are, I'm just saying, what if they did, and what if people don't have a phone? And
right.
It's like not accepting cash. You're saying, which is a whole other system. I'd like to ask you about that in the district. But
which other?
Why would you allow businesses not to accept the federal and government issued ID?
Well, sorry, and I don't mean to say that we're encouraging that or saying but that is it's. Yeah, again, it's the fumbling that you talked about between the phone and the ID and things like that. It is permissible for folks to make it more strict.
And can I ask about the cashless? That was passed by the D.C. Council. I don't know where
the
street on that. Mm-hmm. It was suspended because it was...
I've got to check where, I got to check whether that was in the public emergency or the public health emergency, and whether this one, the public health emergency that was recently.
Funded. Enforcement was never funded by the administration.
Or by the council, correct.
Yeah. Why not?
So there's a lot of things that are passed each year by the council that don't.
Does the Biden administration support businesses being allowed to buy cash purchases?
So we have, I think the mayor signed the bill, but we haven't had the funding for it, and the council did not either.
Okay, but again, so I just want to make sure I got... So does Clear do something special that...
No, it's more so how the business wants to implement this, right? So what is the easiest way for the business to implement it? And some businesses will put in place one uniform way for them to check the vaccination status.
I'd be interested in Kathy's response because she's been kind of reacting to it. So you go into a restaurant and a DC-issued driver's license is not acceptable, and a DC-issued vaccination card is not acceptable. But
So this is, I do nod a lot. Just because I nod a lot, it means nothing. I need to stop nodding. But I will say this. Right now, I would say that the majority of small businesses want the flexibility to be able to have diners come in a way that is easy. They could show their whatever form that is allowable, they want to be able to take that in. There are cases, and the Rammies were a great example for us. We needed one platform that was easy for us to be able to verify, to get people. We were the first real in-person event in DC of that scale, and we had to do our own management of how we were going to verify people coming into our event. Will restaurants in DC begin asking that they only use VaxYes or Clear, or possibly down the road? I would imagine, and Gavin is probably a great person to ask as well, I would imagine that restaurateurs want to have as many options as possible because they want to be able to bring diners into their restaurants in a way where they feel safe and where they are able to bring their business back to life. Gavin,
Yeah, I mean,
would you agree?
this, for us, really isn't an issue. I mean, we're going to accept CDC cards, we'll accept apps, we'll use it with people's IDs. We're going to make it as easy as possible. You know, I think the mayor talked about it being a good faith effort on our part to make sure people are vaccinated when they come into our restaurant. We also know that there are people that might try to, you know, trick us on that, and we'll do our best, and maybe that'll get through. Hopefully it doesn't. You know, I think going back, though, Mark, you asked a question about, do operators support this? Does the RMW support this? And as an operator, as having friends that are operators and colleagues, there are different opinions on that. I will tell you that everybody is in a consensus that this is better than rolling back capacity. This is better than us not being able to sit people at the bar and explain why that's not acceptable and sitting at a table is. This is better than us measuring our tables and things like that. You know, so it allows us to do the business that we need to do to survive the pandemic. And with that, I think everybody's kind of behind it, as opposed to the alternative.
Thank you, Gavin. Just one more question before we go.
Anything else?
The Deputy Mayor,
Yeah.
about snow.
Snow, yep.
What's the snow preparation for?
So teams have already started to deploy for brining, and then they'll also be ready to salt as well. Right now, it looks like it's a Sunday morning arrival of snow, taper off by the afternoon, and so we'll have a full deployment that Mayor Bowser will deploy to address the weather, but we're watching it and being briefed on the latest forecast. Looks like now it's between 3 or 4 inches was the last update we got this morning, so teams will be out again pre-treating with brine and then using salt and the plows to address the snow on Sunday.
If I can follow up, the snow plow map that residents are looking at, they're finding it's not really accurate. Any comment on what residents should expect from this map?
Yeah.
They see a snow plow has been gone through their street allegedly, but you look at it, it hasn't.
Yeah, so the question's about the snow map, and the map is generally populated by equipment that is on our district-owned vehicles. And so when those district-owned vehicles are being supplemented by contractors, they don't have the same technology on their vehicles. And so in the most recent storms where we had big COVID impacts to our staff and we had to rely more on contractors, the map wasn't updating in order to reflect the true effort that had already taken place. So we're working to address that and also to make the map more clear about what it means that a plow has passed and to get it to a standard that we're trying to show what is passable and non-passable so that residents can utilize it to understand what's happening in their neighborhood.
Is there still a DPW shortage for snowplow workers?
So they're still impacted by COVID, not as extremely as they were in the last storms of last week.
Thank you.
Great. Thanks, everybody.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
In a few minutes, we're going to have a display of the dishes that are in the menu and some sampling of the charcuterie products from the restaurant.
Great.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thanks, yeah. Good job. Good job.
Kathy, do you know how many restaurants are participating in this?
We now return to our previously scheduled program, already in progress.